Good morning. Welcome in to 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can also listen to us on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. I am Gary Williams. Great to have you with us on this Monday morning. This program always presented by Century Insurance, right by you. They make right choices when it comes to investing in golf with their relationship with the USGA, the First Tee, and also being the presenting sponsor of that first event on the PGA Tour. Golf Pride. Every player at every level trusts Golf Pride as the #1 grip around the world. Peter Millar, luxury, style, refining it for more than 2 decades. It's all I've ever worn for the last 15 years in Pinehurst Resort. There is always a good reason to be there. I was there on Saturday. I'll have a little bit more detail on that coming up. We got a lot to get to on this Monday morning. One of the really special events in golf is going on right now. It started a little bit under an hour ago, and the president of the club where that event is being held is going to join me here in less than 15 minutes, and I'm talking about the Seminole Pro-Member. This is an event that, if you consider who is there today, who has been there through the years, who has won this event, it's pretty remarkable. So Jimmy Dunne's going to be joining me here to give us an idea of the history of this event, why this event means so much to the club, and also the day ahead. Because if you want mid-round, pre-round interviews, we're going to give you one with the guy who's going to be playing golf in less than an hour. And also Andy Weitz, who is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of the PGA Tour and an Executive Vice President of the PGA Tour, is going to be joining me as well. It's Bay Hill Week. Next week, as we know, is Players Week. It's a very important time for the PGA Tour. Every week is. But in terms of messaging, and a lot of people want to know where we are with the state of the PGA Tour. Looking forward to that conversation with Andy. We start, though, with the Cogizant Classic, because it's the first event on the PGA Tour. And as we take a look at the final leaderboard from Florida and the Florida Swing, Joe Highsmith. Nobody was thinking Joe Highsmith, certainly not when Saturday morning started, and very few when Sunday morning started, and he actually won by 2 over Jacob Bridgman and J.J. Spahn. Max McGreevy and Ben Griffin finishing a tie for 4th. Russell Henley, Jake Knapp, Michael Kim at 15 under par, tie for 6th. Michael Kim's gotten off to a very good start this season. Jake Knapp going to get to some details of why things changed so dramatically for him in that final round. Eric Van Rooyen had a great final round to launch himself into the top 10, and Jordan Spieth, his second top 10 early on in 2025. And this is at a place where he has very little experience and very little record there. So that is an encouraging week for Jordan. But let's get back to the guy who won this golf tournament. Joe Highsmith is somebody who, for a lot of people, maybe not that familiar with. He was a member of the PGA Tour last year off of what was an excellent college career, primarily because of who he was a part of, and that was Pepperdine. And I reached out to Steve Burkowski, who knows as much about college golf as anybody, and he said that he hit one of the best, most pressurized shots that he has ever seen from a college golfer. He was in a fairway bunker at Grayhawk on the 18th hole, had to carry water in excess of 180 yards, and pulled off the shot. Now, Pepperdine was a team that was blessed with a ton of very, very good players. Joe Highsmith was among those very good players, but if you look at last year, among many guys who are trying to kind of find their footing on the PGA Tour, a lot of missed cuts, had some decent weeks. So here he comes into the weekend, and he shoots 64-64. When you stack Jim Burt on top of Jim Burt, and if you got that reference, you're a Big Blue fan. You're a New York Football Giant fan. Number 64 in your program, number 1 in your heart, back in the mid-'80s. When you shoot 64 on Saturday, after making the cut on the number by making a 5-footer, it's like, wow, I can have a decent check. I can make some points. This can be a good week after all. And then you do it again on Sunday, knowing that as you're finishing your final round, you got a chance to win, because Jake Knapp, who he didn't have control of this tournament, you don't have control of PGA National because of how perilous the inward 9 can be. And it's not just 15, 16, and 17. There's water features virtually on every hole on the inward 9. So it wasn't like Jake Knapp had a death grip on this golf tournament. But when he hit it in the water on 11 and then proceeded to try to play his 3rd from there, left it in the penalty area, makes triple, all of a sudden the entire script got flipped. And here's Joe Highsmith with very little experience being in contention deep on a Sunday. And what did he do? Guy didn't miss a shot. He did not miss a shot. And to see him and to hear Kevin Kisner saying, hey man, he's going to split this fairway again because he is as locked in as you could possibly be. And again, no record of doing this. The interesting wrinkle to all of this is the guy who was on the bag for him, Joe LaCava. No, not that Joe LaCava, Joe LaCava the fourth. Yeah, there are four of them in succession. Joe LaCava, all those years, all those wins, notably with Fred Couples, and then obviously with Tiger, including that 2019 Masters. So it's his son on the bag. And I reached out to Joe last night to ask him about Joe's path into becoming a PGA Tour caddy. And it's interesting what he shared with me via text, and we're going to share it with you right now. He said, you know, it's kind of weird because for a kid that played football and baseball his whole life and didn't play much golf until after high school, he can read greens pretty well. Like me and a lot of us, he always thinks he's right, and he's pretty confident in what he's doing and saying, super competitive, hates losing. And he went on to say, I think working the father-son was great for him being around TW, meaning Tiger, and the way he goes about his business. Charlie Woods, was pretty young, so Tiger stayed out of the way and let Joe help Charlie as much as possible. Charlie was asking lots of questions, carry, run outs. So it was great learning experience for both, but especially Joe. Charlie liked TW, very high golf IQ, so Joe needed to be ready. Plus, he had to make books. We had to make books for that tourney, so that was great for Joe. What an interesting wrinkle that now another generation of LaCava is in the winner's circle on the PGA Tour. And I can't imagine what it was like down the stretch for two young guys in the blenders, so to speak, late on the PGA Tour to get it done. And again, I don't need more evidence, but it's fun when you see the evidence of how many are so damn capable that when the state is flowing, and I'm talking about the mental state, that it allows the body to execute. And to consider that Joe Highsmith, like I said, has not been in this position. If you walk through and revisit the shots that he hit coming down the stretch, you're going, yeah, he's done this a lot. No, he hadn't. The beginning of the bear trap on 15, he had a fabulous iron shot in there, gave himself a reasonable chance to make birdie there. On to 16, splits the fairway, hits his second shot, and painted the flagstick and hit it deep, which was the practical play. 17, perfect weight on an iron shot. And you're going, my God, this guy might just do this. And then on 18, where they're going, what do you do here? All he's got to do, just stay away from those bunkers on the left-hand side. Right rough is okay. How about splitting the fairway? Joe Highsmith, the latest winner, and now that is 3 of 4 who are first-time winners on the PGA Tour. And you can say, oh, come on, those events are events where you don't have a lot of the top players. Fair. And I'm not going to push back that that isn't unequivocally true, but it still is a point that there are more players now capable, when the time is right and their mind is right, to get it done. Hell of a story. All right, we're going to take a break. I mentioned this day. Off of this event, one of the great traditions that we have in golf, it's not something you're going to see on television. You saw the tee sheet probably last night on social media and you're going, wow, that's a lot of really good players. That's right. 18 major champions are playing Seminole Golf Club today in the Seminole Pro-Member. The president of the club, Jimmy Dunne, will join me next to talk about the history of this event and why this event is so beloved by his membership on a special day in Palm Beach County and Juno Beach, right on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a Monday on 5 Clubs. We're back with you right after this. Welcome back in on this Monday. It is 5 Clubs on Golf Channel. You can also listen on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Golf Pride. It is the grip trusted by more players at every level around the world. Joining me now is the president of the Seminole Golf Club, because today is a special day. It is a day about fellowship, and they obviously want paint on the wall. There's nothing like walking into the locker room at Seminole and seeing the names adorned on those boards. Of course, speaking of Jimmy Dunne, the president of the club. Jimmy, good morning. How are you, my friend?
Delighted to be with you, Gary. And it's a great day, and we've got good weather, and we got a lot of good players. It should be a lot of fun.
I know it will be. For people who have a modest familiarity that this goes on every year, can you give people just a little history lesson how long this has been going on? There was a period there when I was on the professional staff, the event was not being conducted. Just an idea of when this started and then when it was returned, because it's become such a great day again.
Well, as you say, if you look on the boards, you see well in the past, Nelson, Hogan, Middlecoff, Snead. There was a sort of a member event, and I guess it got a little bit crazy in terms of the money pool, and so it kind of got a little out of hand. I don't know the exact, but they had everybody in the world playing it, and it stopped. And then my predecessor, Tim Neer, really wanted to bring it back to have a day where members could ask a professional to play, and then those relationships, hopefully, they had a good time, and he'd come back, and it would help build relationships and have fun and showcase Seminole as well, because everybody knows Seminole that's where Hogan played. Great history, and to see this new generation of players come and play it and enjoy it the way we have it, that was sort of Tim Neer's vision. And like most things, Tim always had a good idea, and I just follow up. Basically, is the way it goes.
Jimmy, one of the things about this, obviously, this is a membership, an elite playing professional event. But beyond that, you've taken the responsibility to give Seminole back. What I mean by that is the Walker Cup, the Stevens Cup, the event that was done during COVID, the sense of responsibility. I know that got to you. Why did it get to you to feel like you needed to do things like that?
Well, I guess I've always felt that if you have the privilege to be a member at some of these wonderful golf courses, you're not an owner, you're just a caretaker. And to the degree that we can share it in a refined, tasteful, hopefully elegant manner, we want to do that. So I was very excited about having the Walker Cup. I thought it was a terrific event. I think people really enjoyed it. Obviously, as you said, coming out of COVID, we have a lot of type A's at Seminole, and there was an urgency here to do something, and this tragedy was going on, and it just presented an opportunity to bring live sports back. So whenever we can do something that's consistent with the values and showcase really what we think is just a special golf club. We're not trying to be all things to all people. We're about, high echelon golf, well done, played well, enjoyed by people, shared by people. And when we can do that, we'll try to do it. And this event is another expression of that.
I mentioned before the last commercial break, 18 major champions playing the golf course today. In total, 44 major championships won by those individuals. But the membership, it's one thing to have an IQ. It's another thing to have the golf acumen that the Seminole membership has. Walker Cup participants, players in USGA championships. I think, what's the percentage of the membership that has not just tried to, but has actually competed in a USGA championship?
Well, yeah, during the Walker Cup, we looked at that, and we calculated basically 23% of our membership has been eligible and qualified for a USGA event. I always say I discovered that stat after I finally got into one and finished dead last. But I did, so that stat became relevant to me after I was amongst the 23%. But yeah, that is an important thing. We're really a golf club. That's what we're trying to be. And people that respect the game, I always say know how to get around in 3.5 hours. Everything goes in the hole, and it's just consistent. And then what we were able to do is our members really invite guys that they know, and these are become relationships and friendships, and they're rooting for them. And it's been a really neat thing to see. And we've got a variety of players. We've got as you said, the guy just won the Cognizant's playing today, and that's happened several times. So we're delighted with that, and we're delighted to see a new player come and play and then make history somewhere else. It's kind of fun for us.
You know, Jimmy, when I was there, and you became a member at the time that I was on the professional staff there 30 years ago, you know, to see Arnold come there and play golf with the likes of Bronson Ingram and obviously Jack coming there on occasion and Ray Floyd, and I can go on and on. Tiger's on the golf course already with Seth Waugh, the former CEO of the PGA of America. If you had to get, how often has Tiger been at Seminole to play golf?
I know he played with Tim Neer a few years ago. He was terrific. He played last year and he was very, very gracious and loved what we had done on the golf course and had a great day. And he came back today, which is always good to see him and everybody. We want everybody to be invited. And so I think they're playing with Shane Battier and our Ryder Cup captain. So anytime we can have kids, Ryder Cup captain or both Ryder Cup captains. Luke Donald's also playing too. So, you know, with that coming up in September, and I guess Davis Love used to refer to Seminole when he used to play with Billy all the time, and he used to refer to Seminole as the first major of the year. So it just has it has a great. I'm playing with Ryan Fox today. We played a practice round yesterday. He and I and Danny Willett, and these are guys that I really appreciate that they want to be here. We try to keep it very low key. We try to make it a very enjoyable day, and I think so far we've done that, and we're going to try to keep doing it. But there's a great buzz around. Whenever you have this coming up, there's a real healthy buzz and energy to the place.
There is a couple more things before I let you go, because people said they want pre-round interviews. We're giving them one because you're on the tee in about a half an hour. The
Exactly.
Korda sisters, Jimmy, having Jess and Nellie there. That's got to be, you got to be delighted that the two of them are there playing together.
Well, I absolutely loved it. I remember a couple of years ago when they played, Brady, Tom Brady, obviously he's playing today with our pro, Matty Cahill, and they were all excited about getting a picture with Brady at the cocktail party. So they bring a terrific energy. Obviously, we can watch both of their golf swings all day, and it's just exciting to have them. We're really excited to have everybody that participates in this. You know, there's nothing, they're not getting anything. There's no publicity, there's no money. There's just try to, come here. And obviously they've built good relationships with Johnny Waldron, who I think Nellie's playing with, and Mike Troy, who Jess is playing with. So I think they had a great deal last year. And I love it when they come back, because usually you don't come back to something you didn't enjoy. So whenever we can have them, they'll be invited, forever, as far as I'm concerned.
Jimmy, there is some pressure. I did a little shoot with Rory on Friday, and he said his dad, by the third green, if they're not at least one under, he's already like, we got no chance. Now, and Rory's won the thing, but he hadn't won it with his father. So there are some people feeling some pressure, right?
Well, look, it's all nice and it's all fun, but everybody wants that paint, as you said at the beginning of the show. And I'll feel it too. We all feel it. Foxy and I missed by a shot last year. We'd like to do something about that. I always laugh because when we went up and played a practice round years ago with Rory and his dad, and his dad was commenting how difficult the shot was on 3, and Rory said, "Thank you for letting him see how difficult this is." But Rory will feel a different kind of pressure today. He's playing great. Obviously, his dad's a great player and great fun. I always tease. I say he's Seminole's most popular member, but I'm not rooting for him today. I'm rooting for myself and Foxy. We'd like to get on that board too, but they'll play well. But yeah, Gary, I always remember when I think you and I first met was on the beach right behind here at Seminole, because we always used to have a tradition of playing and then jumping in the ocean. And you'll be happy to know Ryan and I did it yesterday. So we were thinking about you yesterday, and it's great to be on your show, and great for all the success you're having, and anything we can do to help you, we'll be glad to do.
Jimmy, thank you. Yep, that was 30 years ago. You said, we're jumping in the ocean. I said, Mr. Dunne, I have to go back to work. You said, we're jumping in the ocean, which we did. I'm glad the tradition continues. Thank you for taking the time and doing this. Have a great day. I know it's a special thing for the membership to share this with all these great players. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Gary. Best of luck.
All right, there is Jimmy Dunne, the president of the Seminole Golf Club. That's right, 30 years ago when he said, Gary, we're jumping in the ocean. And I'm thinking, I can't say no to a member, but I don't know exactly how this works. I did, in fact, do just that. All right, we're going to take a break. Andy Weitz, who is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer of the PGA Tour, is going to join me. A number of things to get to with him as it relates to, where the tour is focusing on things to get better. Not only the people who are watching these events on television, but also on site, the Fan Forward Survey, what they learned, many, many questions to be asked and hopefully answered by him. Also, what I saw over the week in the world of golf. I mentioned being with Rory. I'll share some details of that on my day with him on Friday. As we continue with you on this Monday edition, 5 Clubs on Golf Channel on the PGA Tour Radio Network. We're back right after this. It is the bottom of the hour on this Monday here on 5 Clubs, here on Golf Channel, and also on the PGA Tour Radio Network on Sirius XM. This segment brought to you by Peter Millar. To give you an example of the versatility of the lines of Peter Millar, I was with Rory McIlroy Friday doing a shoot, Saturday at an annual dinner for the USGA, and Sunday moving a daughter into a new apartment. And everything I had on was Peter Millar, whether it's Crown Crafted, Crown Sport, or Crown Collective. Whatever you need, they've got you covered at Peter Millar. Joining me now is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer and Executive Vice President of the PGA Tour, Andy Weitz, kind enough to take some time. Every week's a busy week on the PGA Tour, but obviously with the players starting next Monday, Bay Hill this week, he's a busy man. Andy, thank you for carving out the time. Good morning.
Good morning, Gary. Great to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for making the time to have this conversation. For people who don't know, Andy, look, you had a relationship with the tour before you started there because of where you worked previously with Aon. So you knew some of the personnel. You knew as much as you could know with respect to the policies, practices, procedures, and the ethos of the company, which is the PGA Tour. But you still had to make your own priorities when you got there. What were they, and how long did it take for you to identify the things that you thought were most important for you to work on, let's say in the first 6, 8, 12 months of the job?
Oh, well, thanks, Gary. I mean, yeah, you're exactly right. Lucky to know a lot of the team and to have experienced a lot of the tour priorities, how we work here over the course of the partnership that Aon has had with the tour, almost 7 years now. And then coming in myself, it was really about, listening and learning from the other side of the table. And one of the things that we were so lucky to just be starting as I joined last August was this fan forward research. And I think that's a really important priority for us because when we put the voice of the fan at the center of what we're doing here at the tour, it's hard to go wrong. And obviously the tour's gone through a lot of change. And so as I looked personally at this opportunity, I think the next 3 to 5 years are going to dictate the next 50 years of professional golf. And so having the fan at the center of that, really understanding in a data-driven way what they expect from us, how we can evolve, that really became our North Star over the last 6 or 7 months. And listen, any organization that's going through the kind of evolution we aspire to, you got to be able to kind of keep your eye on the big picture, the deal that we're looking to get done, but also really focus on what we can control and what we can do on behalf of fans, players, and partners to constantly get better.
You said earlier this year when you guys were talking about the response, the reaction, the feedback you got from the Fan Forward Survey, you said this is an inflection point for the PGA Tour. Can you explain to the audience why it's such a critical time for the business of the PGA Tour?
Well, when you think about it, Gary, the tour as it is constituted today has been around for a little over 50 years. That's often in the history of professional sports a moment where some form of disruption occurs. Obviously, that's an opportunity to take stock of where you are, how you get better, how you might evolve. You want to protect, obviously, the history and legacy of the game, but you also need to modernize. So the question becomes, how do you set priorities? What is the right path forward? And in our case, the fan forward research became absolutely critical because it really gave us a window into what our fans were thinking. Everything from our core fans who are so resilient and show up all the time to engage with our players, as well as our casual fans, including that next generation of young fans who we can't just expect to necessarily, kind of age into that core segment. There's so many things competing for their time. There's so many different pathways, if you will, from a fan perspective into PGA Tour fandom. We need to understand what makes them tick and where they start from. And then obviously there's the whole sports world, which is, more cluttered than ever before. Lots of stuff competing for fans' time. So when we think about the future of the tour, if we can create a really strong fan relationship and a connection between our fans and our players, then obviously there's a virtuous cycle that starts there, where the platform gets stronger, our partners are more excited to invest, and that's when this flywheel really starts turning, and we create all kinds of opportunities for our team, for our investors. The future gets even brighter. So that data sits at the center of that process, and we're really excited about what we've learned over the last 6 months.
You know, Andy, one of the things I know that you guys heard in the feedback was speed, pace. Explain exactly what? Like, are fans watching, and is their reaction, it seems like the overall round seems slow or slower, or is it the idea of when they train a camera on a player and the process of executing a shot seems slow? Like, I think there's a difference between people's context of how long it takes to play a round of golf inside a broadcast window to players who are deep into a golf tournament trying to win. And I'm not saying that they slow down, you know, specifically, but we see more of them as opposed to cut to that shot. The story's building. What did you learn about pace and speed with the Fan Forward survey?
Well, Gary, you just covered a lot of it. It's a great window into this conversation. And let me tell you, while I may be the new guy to an extent, obviously pace of play is not a new issue. So like everything else around here, it starts with listening and learning from our competition officials and our rules officials in terms of how this issue has evolved over the last 20 years or so. And you nailed it. It's both pace of play itself and perception of pace of play. So this starts with our broadcast partners and understanding how we can enhance the broadcast and move around in ways that really reward the viewer for staying engaged. But there's also aspects of it that relate to what happens inside the ropes. And let me give you an example. If you look at our time at Torrey Pines over the last month, right? Obviously pretty unique in that we played 2 tournaments there. Back at the Farmers Insurance Open, there was a little chatter about the fact that the rounds were approximately 5 hours and 26 minutes. Now those were threes, right? Playing in groups of 3. Just a few weeks later, obviously because of the tragedy in Los Angeles, we moved down for the Genesis Invitational. And again, in that case, playing in 2s at that signature event, we actually played those rounds in about 4 hours. So you have a 90-minute swing right there based on what our competitions officials would call you, like how many cars are on the freeway, if you will. That's the amount of players. And listen, some of the changes we made last year in terms of field size and eligibility will really have an impact in 26 because there will be fewer cards and fewer players, you know, playing the tournament. But that's only one aspect of it. I think that fans need to understand that we actually have a good sense of what we call average stroke time. So AST basically allows us to measure through shot length technology how long each player on tour is standing over the ball and how much time they take between each stroke. So with that in mind, there's a lot of ways into how we address the issue. Some of it could be more transparency, which could drive accountability, right? Some of our own players have said we should be posting and sharing AST in a stack rank order so everyone can see where everybody stands. Another way to look at it is potentially assessing penalty strokes, right? It may be that what we need to do is something similar to what you saw in Major League Baseball, not necessarily a shot clock itself, but that notion of accountability. Either way, it's going to be about innovation and transparency. We think those are the 2 most important pieces of it. And the more we can do to help our fans understand and hold our players accountable, the more I think we'll see a better experience inside the ropes. And so for us, the way we think about it is everything's a gimmick until it's not. We have to start somewhere and we have to test. So we have this working group we've created. Again, it's critical that this is a player-led dialogue. So we've got a group of players looking at the issue. We've already announced that we're going to be testing some distance measuring device or rangefinder technology for a period of probably 4 events this summer. And I think you'll see us do more of that testing in the future in different ways to really understand the issue before we bring the best scalable solution to the tour itself.
You've got voices with backgrounds now with SSG in the game of baseball. Baseball, and I thought very effectively, and I grew up a baseball fan, still am, used the minor league system to test potential changes to the major league product, including a pitch clock. Is it plausible that the Korn Ferry Tour, and it's not using it as some type of, test tube, but why would it be impractical not to use the Korn Ferry Tour potential testing for implementation at the PGA Tour level for some of these initiatives?
Gary, I think it's a great point. And I think you may see us do that. We look forward to sharing some new insights on that coming out of our working group in collaboration with our Player Advisory Council and the days and weeks ahead. And again, to get this right, it's going to have to be player-led. It'll be done together. in a way that they feel they're holding each other accountable to better outcomes in terms of the fan experience. But you're right, there are parallels between minor league baseball and the Korn Ferry Tour, our entire pathway program, all the way from PGA Americas through PGA Tour U to KFT, not to mention on the Champions Tour. There's lots of ways that we can take actual play and look at different solutions to speed in ways that could really give us insights into the right solution at the PGA Tour level. So yeah, I think there's probably more of that on the horizon.
The SSG Golf IQ, what have you learned from them? Again, like I said, these are very successful people in other sporting enterprises. Their input, their feedback, their view of the game, what is it?
Great question, Gary. I think, stepping back for a moment, when you look at the growth capital that we took on board as part of PGA Tour Enterprises last year, I think the fact that we had a dozen bidders who wanted to invest in the PGA Tour, it's just a sign of the value of the platform and the opportunity ahead of us. And in bringing on SSG, that choice was as driven by much as like the financial capital as well as the expertise. So to your point, it's not just Major League Baseball, it's the NFL, the NBA, best practices from across what you might call the stick and ball sports. And they bring a lot of insights into how you manage your fan base, how you engage them, how you grow the experience on site, and how you further strengthen the overall platform. I think they have a real appreciation for the complexity of our organization. They value the heritage of the game, and they've also had some experience modernizing, in other sports. Look at the NBA, for instance, and what they did to open up the lane and increase three-point shooting. Look at the NFL and the way they took what was a liability in terms of health and safety and turned it into an asset as they protected the quarterback and increased scoring. And of course, you had Theo Epstein at Major League Baseball driving a really interesting project around modernizing baseball, things like the pitch clock, things like larger bases, the idea of a man, on second and extra innings, things that would have seemed ridiculous until the data told them this is a way to actually be responsive to what fans want. And so the fact that Theo is an advisor to Fenway Sports Group, that's fantastic for us because FSG is a big part of the Strategic Sports Group, and their input is really helping us guide what comes next for the PGA Tour.
Andy, as you're aggregating the audience, and what I mean by that is we look at what was on network television yesterday, and you're going, okay, I wonder how many people were watching. But in addition to that, you now have a digital product that really is kind of a sun-up, almost a sundown type of experience if you want it. Are you seeing people not necessarily leaving in droves from the linear experience, but what are you learning about the way people are consuming the PGA Tour in different ways?
Consumption habits are changing, and it varies, Gary, a little bit by the age of the fan. But I want to start, by going back to a comment you just made there. I think there is a kind of a dated narrative, if you will, around linear TV ratings. There's no question that in general, streaming and other channels and other ways of consuming golf and PGA Tour golf as an experience, they're evolving, no doubt. But if you look at the first couple of months of the PGA Tour season, tremendous momentum across linear TV for us. I think if you look since our network television debut at the Farmers Insurance Open, I believe we're up 17% year over year in our average audience, and our peak audience is up 11%. We're climbing above 4.1 million viewers at peak. Internationally, we have a double-digit increase. We're up 10% in measured markets. And so as much as fan behavior is changing, and we have to meet them where they are, our core audience is still tuning in, and I think it's a result of great winners, high drama, iconic courses, and tournaments that have meaning. That's what golf fans want. That's what PGA Tour fans want. Now, in addition to that, we got to learn how to show up in streaming, and we're doing that through PGA Tour Live. That data isn't as broadly shared, but over the last 3 years on ESPN+, PGA Tour Golf has been the most streamed live content every year. In 25, we're already off to a great start and on pace to do that again. So I think it's not just streaming and linear. I'd also say it's about, back to fans, how we create pathways from new forms of golf, right? Like look at what's happening on YouTube and how our younger fans are engaging with creators. And millions of those fans are following those creators and consuming golf in different lengths at different levels of detail. That's one of the reasons we created our Creator Council. We brought some of the top creators, if you will, I think there's a dozen on the council today, to the table to work with the tour so we can better understand how they're connecting with fans. We can get them under the tent, understand how we can be easier to work with, so they have an opportunity to get to know our players better, and we can refine and revise our media regulations to make it easier to create content together. Those are all examples of how I think we have momentum today and how we're looking around the corner to how we need to get better in the future.
How do you explain to the audience about the things that are working, that continue to work without sounding defensive? I mean, because I think that's one of the challenges of people in positions like yours. It's like, yes, we obviously want to evolve. We want to listen. That the Fan Forward survey is a perfect example of saying what is working, what isn't. So there are things that do work. So how do you effectively explain what is working without sounding defensive? And I'm not suggesting you are.
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for saying I don't sound defensive. I mean, I think it's conversations like this, right? I think that for a while now, we've been focused on getting our priorities straight and obviously focused on the deal and the potential for bringing golf back together. But alongside that, we need to be focused on what we can control, what we completely have control over. And that starts with the fan experience. And if we want to get the benefit of the doubt and prove to our fans we're focused there, we need to have conversations like this. We need to be talking more about what the data tells us. There's a lot of emotion. Why is there emotion? Because fans are passionate. Everyone has a perspective on how golf should evolve and what can make the PGA Tour better. That's great. We want to listen, we want to learn, and then we want to take the data and make it objective. We want to say these are the priorities as we understand them from our fans. We want to take that data to our players so we can have a conversation at the Player Advisory Council about how we might evolve alongside those fan expectations. And again, when we're aligned with our players and we understand what our fans want, I think we win. And along the way, we just got to make sure that we talk about it so everyone understands that we're focused on the right things and committed to constantly getting better.
Do you think your players, who, from every player I've talked to, they're paying more attention, there's more intellectual investment on their part. Do you think the players and the fans basically want the same things?
Well, I think players want to play in front of, packed tournaments and tournaments that matter, that have meaning, that have history. That's their legacy. I hear them talk a lot more about what it means to go through a list of where they've competed and where they've won than the purses that they've captured. And our job at the tour is to make sure that we get that message out there because we think that engages fans. And I will tell you, I think players are really sophisticated in how they're thinking about this moment, and they're really focused on what fans want from them. They love the Fan Forward research data. We'll be sharing more of that this week at our Player Advisory Council. You'll hear the commissioner talk more about that next week in his remarks at the players. But I think they understand their own brands. They understand the need to get out there and make themselves more relatable to our players, back to my YouTube point and the value of working with creators to really meet our fans where they are. And I think fundamentally, you're seeing our players begin to adopt what I'd call an owner's mindset, which I think is connected to that idea of our player equity program. First of its kind, really, in professional sports, and an opportunity to bring players along and help them understand that the way they engage outside the ropes either increases or decreases the value of our platform. And they hold that equity. So over time, I think we're going to be more and more aligned with our players in terms of how the tour evolves and how we bring our fans along on that ride.
Next week, as you mentioned, in terms of what Jay is going to share, you know how people are, you know how fans are right now, that this idea that we feel like there's some type of resolution on the horizon, that it's much, much closer than it's been. Is that fair?
Well, I think we've had 2 meetings in the White House in the last month. So I think by those standards, those are pretty important steps forward. I would also say that bigger picture, we did some research as part of Fan Forward around what fans want to see in terms of how the game evolves. And almost 70% of our fans said they want full reunification. They want the game to come back together. They want the best players in the world playing together more often in tournaments with meaning in ways that they can relate to and be a part of themselves personally. Only 30% were interested in some form of investment going forward. They'd much rather see a full resolution of this. And I think based on the public comments you've seen from Commissioner Monahan, you've seen from Tiger Woods, you've seen from the president himself, I think everyone's focused on that outcome because we want to deliver for our fans, bring this game back together, and celebrate its great legacy while we continue to make it better for everybody involved.
Andy, I look forward to doing this again. I know you're off to Bay Hill. Look forward to seeing you next week at the Players. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Gary. Great to be with you.
All right, there's Andy Weitz, who is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, Executive Vice President of the PGA Tour. We take a break. We come back.
Thanks,
what
Tyler.
did I see in golf? I'll share that with you. Coming up next right here on 5 Clubs. Welcome back in on this Monday. Got a busy Tuesday tomorrow with Johnson Wagner and Brendan DeYoung joining me in studio. But what did I see over the last week in the world of golf? Let me start with something that I didn't anticipate happening, and that is Laurie Cantor. And of course, this segment being brought to you by Pinehurst. There is always a good reason to be in Pinehurst, and the cottages at Pinehurst number 8 are coming in the month of May. I was there over the weekend. I'll get to that in just a minute. We're going, who's going to be the first LIV golfer to play in the Players? Well, of course, it's Laurie Cantor. Of course it is. Laurie Cantor had a chance to win in South Africa on the DP World Tour. Now, he didn't win in the playoff, but because of his result, he is now inside the top 50 in the official World Golf Rankings. Now, he was a former member of LIV, played for the Cleeks. You remember. I know Kevin, who's in this studio, is a huge Cleeks fan. He is going to get into the Players. Now, if you had that on your bingo card that Laurie Cantor was going to be the first former LIV player, a non-member who then was off LIV for a year, who's now eligible to come back and play as a non-member in the Players, you win. Laurie Cantor in Punta Vedra next week. I saw that over the weekend. I didn't think necessarily he was going to win the playoff. He did not, but still his result is going to get him inside the top 50. This is a hell of a story. Ryan Peake, who is 31 years of age. He won the New Zealand Open. He's a member of the Australasian Tour, and he has done 5 years in prison. He was a member of a rogue renegade motorcycle gang, and he was convicted and did 5 years in prison for assault. And since then, obviously, he's gotten out. He was a very promising golfer early on in his life and then got sideways. And now he is not only obviously out of jail, but he is back among not the best players in the world, but he won the New Zealand Open. And by virtue of that, he earned a spot in the Open Championship. Now, if somebody said to him, and I don't know where he did his jail time, like, you know, what are you going to do when you get out? And he said, I'm going to play in the Open Championship. I doubt there were many guys in the yard, so to speak, who had that same sentiment. And I will say this about him. I do not know the details about, you know, what happened early in his life. He said the story is the story when he was asked about his background after he won the New Zealand Open. And there's a great term that I have heard that I think is applicable. Heck, it's applicable to me. I've given up all hope of a better past. His past is what his past is. And hopefully he's doing all the right things in his life. He's obviously a very good player. That's a hell of a story. I would be blown away. I don't know anything about Ryan, but if you said to me that Webb Simpson was in a rogue motorcycle gang, I would have said, come on, you're crazy. You're making that up. This guy is a big, brawny dude, and to see him holding up that Open Championship flag, that's a story. And you can be rest assured that that story is going to be told right around Open Championship week. If you watched the Cognizant Classic, you saw Luke Clanton make the cut and earn his PGA Tour card through PGA Tour U Accelerated. I said this several weeks ago when he missed the cut at the WM Phoenix Open. The guy stinks of belief. He has an aroma, a pungent stench of belief. His gait, his sachet, his walk, his presentation, this guy has so much self-belief. He oozes it. You know those things that you smell occasionally and you go, ugh, gosh, that smells. The smell of belief is coming out of every pore of Luke Clanton. And to see him have another good day yesterday, have a good result, and he was asked afterwards, are you going to immediately, turn pro? He said, hell no. I want to win a national championship. So congratulations to him. He's a PGA Tour member when he chooses. Now, a couple things I saw on Friday and then on Saturday. And let me start with Friday. I was lucky enough to be asked to go down and be a part of a shoot with Golf Pass, which is part of Golf Channel, with that guy right there on the right, Rory McIlroy. And I've been lucky through the years to spend time with him on occasion and to see him hit shots and for him to talk in detail, literally for hours. We spent hours on a golf course in Boynton Beach, Florida, talking about his process that the members, and that is a young man who's part of Youth on Course, who was lucky enough to be part of the shoot, asked Rory a question, watch Rory execute some shots out onto the golf course. We were taking questions not only from Golf Pass members, but also via video on Instagram. That dollar bill right there is a dollar bill that Rory gave to me back in 2011. It's this dollar bill. He could not believe that I was still in possession of it. Why would I give it up? It's the only thing he's ever paid me for. I caddied for him less than 2 weeks before he won the U.S. Open. So I brought that dollar with me and I said, hopefully my compensation is a little bit better this time than it was back 14 years ago with you. And then finally on Saturday night, I was lucky enough to be invited to the USGA's annual service awards. And I was up on the stage there at the Pinehurst Resort talking about David Jacobson, the brother of Peter Jacobson, who obviously had a wonderful career. He won the Joe Dye Award. They also handed out the Herbert Warren Wind Award to John Moran and Rand Jarris for their wonderful book called The Prairie Rainer, about the history of the Chicago Golf Club. It was humbling to be in the presence of all those people and to get up there and share a few words about those great, great awards. That's what I saw over the last week in golf. As I mentioned, tomorrow we will have Johnson Wagner, Brendan Young in studio. Also, John Wood of NBC and the general manager of the Ryder Cup team with me as well. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.